Alright, so today I'm going to talk about how to make a strong team on Pokemon Sword and Shield for VGC. So since I'm talking about VGC, I'm obviously talking about doubles. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the obvious thing is your attackers. So if you're just playing through the game, what most people do is they just pick the strongest Pokemon and then they play type advantages, and you can play through the game and beat the game just doing that, right? And that's what I used to do before I started playing VGC. And I'd also just pick random moves. Like I used Cinderace when I played through, and I think I used something like this on my Cinderace with Scorching Sands, Pyro Ball, Shadow Ball, and Iron Head, because then he knows a bunch of different types of moves, so he can be good against a lot of different Pokemon. And I never really thought about my Pokemon's stats and is he better at being a physical attacker, better at being a special attacker and stuff like that. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, I didn't know either until I started playing VGC. So when I look at these moves here, when I click on each move, it's going to show it right down here. It shows its power, its accuracy, and then it says category here, and it either shows this symbol, or if I click on Scorching Sands, it shows this symbol. This symbol for Pyro Ball, that is telling you that this is a physical attack. This symbol here for Scorching Sands tells you that that is a special attack. What's the difference? If we go and look at our stats here, physical attacks use your attack stat, and special attacks use your special attack stat. So as you can see, looking at Cinderace, his attack is 116, his special attack is 65. So if I use a move like Scorching Sands, it's not going to work as well as a physical attack. It's going to work much worse, right? 65 is a little more than half of 116, but way less, right? So you don't want to be using special attacks with your Cinderace. So that's the first thing you want to look at is when you're picking strong attackers, you want to look at what's their physical attack, what's their special attack, and those are the types of moves that you're typically going to want to use. So this list of Pokemon on the top here are a bunch of really strong physical attackers. So if I look at their stats, Dragapult, its attack is 120, its special attack is 100. Now this is a little bit closer, so you could get away with running some special attacks with Dragapult, but pretty much everyone runs special or physical attacks on Dragapult because it's a little bit better. Glastrier is a lot like Cinderace, where his attack is way higher than his special attack, so you would never use a special attack with this Pokemon. Alright, so these are all Pokemon who have a better physical attack than their special attack. So when you're picking these Pokemon, what you want to do is you want to, go to moves, and I can sort my moves by physical moves. I can type in physical and filter just the physical moves. And now I can see the list of physical moves that this Pokemon gets to help me pick the moves that I want to use for that Pokemon. So obviously, the opposite then is there's some Pokemon who are really good special attackers. So these are all Pokemon who have a strong special attack. So you can see Spectre's special attack is 145, its physical attack is 65. These are all other good special attackers that are commonly used. So with these Pokemon, you can do the same thing. You can type in special, and you can filter just the special moves. And now you can see the special moves that Spectre gets. Spectre doesn't get a lot of different moves. But if I go to someone like Moltres, let's see what he gets. So he gets a little bit more variety. So some Pokemon get a lot of different variety of attacks, others not so much. But this is what you want to do is filter to the special attacks so that you're picking moves that are going to use its special attack base stat over its attack base stat. So those are the easy ones to figure out. The attackers. So these are Pokemon. I'm going to go back to the physical ones really quick. These are Pokemon where you're just going to pick out their best physical moves. So like Dragapult, he's Dragon and Ghost, so you want a powerful Dragon move like Dragon Darts, a powerful Ghost move like Phantom Force. You probably want Protect, and then one other move. When Dynamax is available, people run Fly because then you get access to max Airstream if you're going to Dynamax your Dragapult. So this is a common set for Dragapult. So you're just going to pick their best physical moves, and then the way you're going to EV train your Pokemon is you're just going to make it max attack, max speed, And then you have 4 EVs that you can add to either hit points, defense, or special defense. And then these are Pokemon that you typically want to be very fast so that they're going first, and then hit really hard. So you want them to be really strong and really fast. So the nature that people typically give Dragapult is Jolly Nature, which boosts his speed and reduces his special attack because you're not using special attacks. And then this makes Dragapult super fast so that it's going to outspeed just about anything and then hit really hard with its high physical attacks. So that's typically what you're going to do with your best attacking Pokemon, whether physical attacker or special attacker. So that stuff is pretty straightforward. But then where Pokemon gets more complicated is all the rest of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about here. So the biggest thing probably in Pokemon is speed control. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. So obviously you want your Pokemon to go first so that you are dealing damage to your opponent before they get to attack you. One of those popular Pokemon that is used for speed control is Whimsicott. Whimsicott gets Prankster ability, which means that its status moves have their priority raised by 1. Status moves are moves that don't do damage. So moves like Protect and Light Screen and Taunt and stuff like that. They're moves that don't do damage. So they're either going to be boosting stats or reducing stats. So Prankster allows those status moves to go first. And then Whimsicott also gets Tailwind. Tailwind doubles the speed of your allies for 4 turns. So the reason Whimsicott is used so much is because it gets that Prankster ability. So that means Tailwind is going to go first. So to start the match, you can just set up a Tailwind that doubles your Pokemon's speed. And then you have one of those really strong Pokemon that we just talked about next to Whimsicott. And now it's going first and it's dealing a lot of damage. So that's a super popular one. Tailwind doubles your speed. Whimsicott and Tornadus are the only 2 Pokemon that get Prankster and Tailwind. So they're super popular Pokemon that you're going to see a lot when you're playing because of this ability to double your speed right at the start of a match. On the opposite end of the spectrum, there's Trick Room. So Porygon 2 is a common Trick Room setter. What Trick Room does is it makes the order of the speed tiers reversed for 5 turns. So that means it makes the slower Pokemon go first for 5 turns. So Trick Room is used with a Pokemon like Glastrier. Glastrier is incredibly slow and it's really strong. So this is a Pokemon who you would boost its attack. It wouldn't make sense to boost its speed because it's going to be slower than everything. So you can use the extra EVs to make it bulkier, give it max hit points. Now you've got an incredibly bulky Pokemon that's super strong. It also allows me to boost my attack with my nature instead of my speed, because again, I don't care about my speed. So people usually use Brave to make it as strong as possible and as slow as possible. So you got a super strong Pokemon that's super bulky, and then you use a Pokemon like Porygon 2 to set up Trick Room so that now Glastrier is going first. So it's dealing tons of damage and it's also super hard to knock out. Downside of Trick Room is it only lasts for 5 turns, so your opponent can stall it out. People are good at finding different ways to stall out Trick Room. You can also stop Trick Room from going up. Trick Room always goes last. So if I look at speed priorities, I'm just on Cerebi here and I typed in speed priorities. Trick Room always goes last. Its speed stage is -7. So I should explain how this works. So these moves at the top of the speed priority list here will always go first. So the move Helping Hand will always go off before anything else. Then moves such as Detect, Protect, stuff like that are stage 4 priority. So they'll go up. The only thing that would happen before those moves is Helping Hand and so on. So you can look through these. I'll talk about these moves a little bit more later on. But all the way at the bottom is Trick Room. So Trick Room always goes last. So your opponent could stop your Trick Room by knocking this Pokemon out before it uses Trick Room. They could taunt it. Taunt stops the target from using status moves for 3 turns. So they could use Taunt, and then that stops you from using Trick Room. So there's ways to stop Trick Room from going up. But if you are able to get Trick Room up, then that makes a Pokemon like Glastrier incredibly tough to deal with. Reason I use Porygon 2 for an example for Trick Room is because, well, Porygon 2 is one of the most common Trick Room setters. And the reason that is because of the item Eviolite. So if you're not familiar with Eviolite, this is an item that boosts your defense and special defense by 1.5, but it only works if you're not fully evolved. So Porygon 2 can evolve into Porygon Z. So he's not a fully evolved Pokemon, so that means I can use this Eviolite to boost my defense and special defense. And to go along with that, Porygon 2 is naturally bulky to begin with. So what people do is they boost his hit points all the way up and then do something like trying to make his special defense and defense very similar, because you don't know if you're going to get hit by a special attack or a physical attack. So your defense stat is used if you're getting hit by a physical attack, and your special defense stat is being used if you're being hit by a special attack. So I would typically train this with something like a relaxed nature or a sassy nature, because you're going to be setting up Trick Room, so you want it to be slow. So I want the minus to be on my speed, and I want the plus to be on my defense or special defense. And then I want to try to make these pretty even, and there we go. So 135 and 135. So I would build my Porygon 2 something like this, and then the Eviolite boosts this by another 1.5. So 135 times 1.5 is 202.5. So really his defense and special defense are 202.5. So it makes it incredibly bulky and tough to knock out. Another one that's super common that you can do the same thing with is Dusclops. So you see this a lot as a Trick Room setter. It's the same idea. Dusclops evolves into Dusknoir, or however you say it. So you can use Eviolite on him as well. And again, a super bulky Pokemon. So you would do the same thing, boost its hit points and then its defense and special defense, very much like Porygon 2. So those are two of the most common Trick Room setters. There's plenty of other Pokemon that get Trick Room. So you could always, if you want to know who gets Trick Room, again, I like using Pokemon Database. So you could type in Trick Room, Pokemon Database, and you could see every Pokemon that gets Trick Room. So there's really all kinds of Pokemon, typically Psychic Pokemon, that get Trick Room because it's a Psychic move. So there's a lot of Pokemon that get it, but those are two of the more common ones because of their natural bulk. So those are two of the most common types of speed control: Tailwind to double your speed, or Trick Room to make the slower Pokemon go first. But there's plenty of other ways that you can control speed. So Regieleki is a popular Pokemon for speed control because its base speed is 200. So you can make Regieleki super fast, and then basically nothing can outspeed it. And then you can use moves like Electro Web, which hits both of your targets and it lowers their speed stat by 1. So I can lead Regieleki and do Electro Web to slow down my opponents. And now again, the strong Pokemon next to Regieleki can hit them before they can attack. You can also use Thunder Wave, but this is only going to hit one of the opponents. What Thunder Wave does is it paralyzes your target, and if you don't know this, paralysis cuts your opponent's speed in half. So going back to Electro Web, if you don't know what this means when it says that your speed is reduced by 1 stage, let's go and look at stat stages. So I typed in stat stages Pokemon. I'm going to go to Cerebi statistics. So this talks about stats here, base stats, individual stats, which people call IVs, effort values, which people call EVs, natures, and all that kind of stuff. But the part we're going to look at right now is the stat modifications. So what does it mean if for example, what we just talked about, I lower my opponent's speed by 1. You can see right here in this chart, if they have a -1 speed stat, now their speed is 0.66 times what it normally would be. 0.66 is 2/3, so it cuts their speed by 2/3. If you hit them with Electro Web twice and now their speed stage is at -2, now their speed is cut in half. And you can see it just gets slower and slower as you continue to reduce their stages. Once you get to -6, you can't lower it any further. And that's going to be 1/4 of their speed, or whatever other stat you're reducing. On the opposite end, if you use a move that boosts your stat by 1, now that stat is being multiplied by 1.5. If you boost a stat by 2, now that stat is doubled, and so on. Okay, other moves that can be used for speed control. So Grimmsnarl is another prankster Pokemon. So again, prankster gives priority to status moves. So people will use a move like Scary Face. Scary Face lowers the target's speed by 2. So like we were just talking about, that would make the target -2 for their speed stage. So that would cut their speed in half, similar to a Thunder Wave. Grimmsnarl also gets Thunder Wave, so you might be thinking, well, Paralysis accomplishes the same thing as Scary Face. It cuts the speed in half, but it also paralyzes them, which means there's a 30% chance that they don't move. So Thunder Wave might be better than Scary Face. The difference is Thunder Wave's only 90% accurate, Scary Face is 100% accurate, so Scary Face is going to hit every single time. Thunder Wave has a chance to miss. Another thing that people use with Grimmsnarl is this move Trick. Trick switches a held item with the opponent. So they'll give their Grimmsnarl an item like Lagging Tail, which makes the Pokemon holding Lagging Tail go last in their priority bracket. So since Prankster makes you +1 for your status moves, Trick will still go before any attack comes out. Then the Lagging Tail gets switched to the opponent, and now that opponent is going to go last in terms of attacking. So when it gets to the attacking stage, that opponent will now go last. The only problem with this is it doesn't go into effect the first turn. So the turn that I do Trick, that opponent is still going to go when it normally would. But every turn after that, now it's going to go last in its priority bracket. So I talked a little bit when I was talking about Porygon and Dusclops, how you could stop Trick Room by using Taunt or knocking the opponent out. I put an Indeedee on here just to show you another way that you can stop Trick Room from going up. This one isn't as common, but what some people do is they use the move Imprison. Imprison makes it so that no foe can use the moves that you know. So if I use Imprison and my Indeedee knows Trick Room, now your Pokemon is not allowed to use Trick Room because you can't use the moves that my Indeedee has. So that's not a very common way to stop Trick Room, but it is another possible way to stop it. Lastly, I put Weavile on here. Weavile is similar to Regieleki with Electroweb. Another move that's just like Electroweb is Icy Wind. It is just an ice version of Electroweb. It has the same base power, the same accuracy. It also hits both opponents, and it lowers both of their speed stage by 1. So these are the most common forms of speed control that you're going to see when you're playing VGC. Another type of speed control is using the weather. So you can use weather to make certain Pokemon faster. So first example is Venusaur. Venusaur has the ability Chlorophyll, which means that if there's harsh sunlight, Venusaur's speed is doubled. Venusaur isn't the only Pokemon that gets Chlorophyll. So you could type in Chlorophyll Pokemon database. This will show you every Pokemon that gets access to Chlorophyll. But Venusaur is the most common one that people use with Chlorophyll. So if you're going to use a Pokemon like Venusaur to use its Chlorophyll ability, you need the sun to be active. So you're going to want some way to get the sun up. A Pokemon that is used to get the sun up is Torkoal. Torkoal's ability is Drought, so when Torkoal enters the battle, he sets up the sun, so Sunny Day is activated. So what people do is they'll lead Torkoal and Venusaur. Torkoal sets up the sun, which doubles Venusaur's speed. You can do this with every weather type, so the different weathers are sun, rain, sand, and hail. The popular rain combination is Politoed, who has Drizzle. Drizzle summons the rain when it enters, and then Kingdra, who gets Swift Swim. Swift Swim is the ability that doubles your speed in the rain. Again, there's more Pokemon that get these abilities, so you could look up Pokemon who get Drizzle, Pokemon who get Swift Swim, but these are the two most common. For Sand, it's Tyranitar and Excadrill. Tyranitar gets Sandstream, which sets up a sandstorm when it enters the battle. Excadrill gets Sand Rush, which doubles its speed in a sandstorm. Again, you could look up the other Pokemon that get these abilities just by typing it in Google and typing in Pokemon database. It'll bring up every Pokemon who gets these abilities. Ice is the least common of the weather teams. You'll see sun, rain, and sand teams quite a bit. The hail teams just aren't as good. So Alolan Ninetales has the ability Snow Warning, which sets up the hail when it enters the battle, and then the ability that doubles their speed is called Slush Rush. There just aren't very good Pokemon that get the ability Slush Rush. That's why it's not as popular as the other weathers. You don't have to have a Pokemon that has an ability to set up a weather. You could also use a Pokemon like Whimsicott or Tornadus. Again, these are Pokemon that get Prankster, which gives your status moves priority. So you could use Whimsicott and use the move Sunny Day. So I could lead Whimsicott and Venusaur and use Sunny Day to set up the sun with my Whimsicott, and now my Venusaur speed is doubled. Tornadus gets access to Rain Dance. Same thing with him as Whimsicott. He has Prankster, which makes its status moves go first, and then it gets Rain Dance, which will set up the rain. So I can do Rain Dance with Tornadus alongside a Swift Swim Pokemon like Kingdra, so that the rain goes up first, and then now Kingdra's speed is doubled. You don't have to have Prankster in order to use Rain Dance and Sunny Day, but what Prankster does is it allows those moves to go first, rather than having it just based off of their speed stat and giving your opponent a chance to knock these Pokemon out or use Taunt on them, things like that. So that's why the Prankster ability is so good, because it gives priority to those moves, so it lets them go first. Alright, so those are pretty much all the different ways that you can get the advantage with speed. So what if you have Pokemon that are just slower than your opponent's Pokemon? There's still ways that you can go first. We've been talking about priority status moves. There's obviously priority attack moves. So that's what we're going to talk about next. Rillaboom is a super popular Pokemon right now because it gets a priority move, Grassy Glide. The reason Grassy Glide is so good is because, first off, when Rillaboom enters the battle, he has the ability Grassy Surge, so when he enters, he sets up a grassy terrain. When the grassy terrain is active, now Grassy Glide has its priority boosted by 1. So now this is going to go before any other attack because it has that +1 priority. So it's like Quick Attack. Quick Attack's probably the most common priority move that people know from, it's been in the game since Generation 1. It's the most common move. Quick Attack always goes first. Grassy Glide is like that. So Grassy Glide is base 70. It's given priority, and the grassy terrain boosts that move by 50%. We'll talk more about terrains in just a little bit, but Rillaboom's Grassy Glide is a super popular move. Rillaboom also gets one of the best priority moves, which is Fake Out. So Fake Out's priority is in stage 3. So the only things that are going to happen before Fake Out are Helping Hand and Protect, moves like that. So what Fake Out does is it has this stage 3 priority, and it makes the opponent flinch. So when an opponent flinches, now they can't move. So you can use Fake Out to force them to flinch, and then you can hit that Pokemon with a super effective attack and knock them out. The only downside to Fake Out is it only hits on your first turn out. That doesn't mean it can only happen on the first turn of the game. It just means you can only use it the first time Rillaboom enters the battle. So when Rillaboom enters, his first move he can use Fake Out. After that, he can't use it. Now, if you switch him back out and bring him back in, then he can use Fake Out again, but you can only use it on your first turn in the battle. Another popular priority move is Sucker Punch, which Dark Urshifu gets. So pretty much every Dark Urshifu is going to get Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch, again, has a base power of 70, but it only works if your opponent is attacking. So if your opponent does something like a status move, then Sucker Punch just fails. So it only works if your opponent is also attacking, but if they're attacking, this move will go first. It gets priority +1, so it's going to go before that opponent. Other popular ones, Aqua Jet. This is a water move, so it's just like Quick Attack. It only has a base power of 40 because moves like Grassy Glide and Sucker Punch sometimes don't work. Grassy Glide doesn't have priority if the grassy terrain isn't up. Sucker Punch doesn't have, or it doesn't work if your opponent isn't attacking. A move like Aqua Jet will always work. That's why its base power is a little bit lower. Another big one is Extreme Speed. Extreme Speed is actually stage 2. So it's going to go before even any of these other stage 1 moves that I was just talking about. So it's stage 2. Fake Out will still go before it, so you can still fake out someone who's trying to use Extreme Speed. But it's going to go before any of these other moves that I've just been talking about. There's a lot of other moves that have priority, and they are all listed right here. So again, I would just type in, priority moves, Cerebi, and you're going to be able to see all these moves. These are all the stage 1 priority moves. So Accelerock is a rock priority move, but the only Pokemon that can learn this is Lycanroc. Aqua Jet we talked about. Bullet Punch we talked about. Ice Shard is the ice form of the priority move, just like Bullet Punch and Aqua Jet. Mach Punch is a fighting move. We talked about Quick Attack. Shadow Sneak is the ghost form. Vacuum Wave is another fighting one. So these are all moves that get stage 1 priority. So these are all popular moves that you'll see when you're playing the game. Again, what's so great about these moves is even if your Pokemon is slower than your opponent's Pokemon, these moves are going to have priority. So these moves will hit the opponent before that opponent gets to go, even though that opponent is faster than you. So priority moves are really good. So how do you stop someone from using a priority move? One of the most common ways to stop an opponent from priority moves is this Pokemon right here, Serena. It has the ability Queenly Majesty. This move just shuts down priority moves. So while Serena is in play, the opponent cannot use priority moves against you. So while Serena is out there, the opponent cannot use Fake Out on you, Grassy Glide, Sucker Punch, any of these moves that we just talked about. They just fail to work when Serena is in battle. There's another way to shut down priority moves, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So next we're going to get into the different terrains. So you can shut down priority moves with a Psychic terrain. So Tapu Lele is a Pokemon that gets Psychic Surge. The other Pokemon that gets Psychic Surge is Indeedee. So you'll see Indeedee is a super common support Pokemon. We'll talk more about Indeedee in a little bit. Tapu Lele and Indeedee, I believe, are the only two that get Psychic Surge. We can look it up here. So yes, Tapu Lele and Indeedee are the only two Pokemon that get this ability. But this does the same thing as Serena. It sets up a Psychic Terrain, which stops priority moves from happening. So if you don't know what the different terrains do, you're going to want to learn what they do. So you're going to want to type in like Psychic Terrain Pokemon Database and look up the different terrains on Pokemon Database. So it tells you what the terrains do at the top here. So first off, each terrain is going to last for 5 turns. And what it says here is what I was just talking about, is that Psychic Terrain prevents grounded Pokemon from being hit by priority moves, such as Quick Attack, Sucker Punch, and the other moves that we talked about. So what does this mean by grounded Pokemon? It means Pokemon who are not flying or don't have the ability Levitate. So if you are playing against a flying Pokemon and the Psychic Terrain is up, you can still hit them with a priority move. So it does have that downside that it doesn't work for your flying Pokemon. It doesn't stop flying Pokemon from getting hit by priority moves, but it's going to stop any other Pokemon from being hit by a priority move. The other thing that a Psychic Terrain does is it boosts the power of Psychic attacks by 1.5. Next type of terrain, let's look at Misty Terrain. So Tapu Fini is a Pokemon that has the ability Misty Surge. Again, if you want to see what other Pokemon gets Misty Surge, you can just type it in. I believe the only other Pokemon that gets Misty Surge is Galarian Weezing. Galarian Weezing is the other Pokemon that gets Misty Surge, but again, you can just look it up if you want to. Okay, so Misty Surge is going to set up a Misty Terrain. So just like Psychic Surge, it'll last for 5 turns. So what Misty Terrain does is it protects all grounded Pokemon from status conditions. Okay, so any of these terrains will not protect or have any effect on flying Pokemon or Pokemon with Levitate. They're only going to affect grounded Pokemon. But this is going to stop any of your grounded Pokemon from getting status conditions. So we talked about Glastrier before, how Glastrier is a super powerful physical attacker. A popular way to shut down physical attackers is burning them because burn cuts your physical attack in half. We'll talk about that more in a minute. So I can stop my Pokemon from getting burned by setting up a Misty Terrain with Tapu Fini. So that's why Tapu Fini is a super popular Pokemon, because it's going to protect Pokemon from status conditions like burn, paralysis, freeze, stuff like that. The other thing that Misty Terrain does is it halves the power of dragon moves. So any dragon move will be cut in half while a Misty Terrain is up. Next, let's look at an electric terrain. So Tapu Koko gets Electric Surge. Again, you can look up the other Pokemon that get Electric Surge. So what Electric Terrain does is it prevents grounded Pokemon from falling asleep. So it's similar to a Misty Terrain, except it only stops sleep. Misty Terrain is going to stop any kind of status condition. So sleep is included as a status condition, right? Misty Terrain would stop sleep. Electric Terrain only stops sleep. That's the only status condition that it stops, but it also boosts the power of electric moves by 50%. So the last type of terrain I talked about before, how Rillaboom has Grassy Surge, so he summons a Grassy Terrain on entry. So let's look at what the Grassy Terrain does. So we know that Grassy Terrain allows the move Grassy Glide to have priority, but what else does Grassy Terrain do? So Grassy Terrain restores the hit points of grounded Pokemon each turn by 1/16 of their max hit points. So Grassy Terrain is like leftovers. At the end of the turn, any non-flying, non-levitate Pokemon will get 1/16 of their hit points back. So it's going to restore some of your hit points at the end of each turn. It also boosts the power of grass moves by 50%, and the moves Earthquake, Magnitude, and Bulldoze are cut in half. So that's what a Grassy Terrain does. It's going to restore some hit points, boost grass moves, and it allows that move Grassy Glide to go first. Now the terrains are very similar to weather. There can only be one weather in effect at a time, and there can only be one terrain in effect at a time. So say I lead Rillaboom and my opponent has Tapu Fini on the bench. If they want to get rid of my Grassy Terrain, they could switch in Tapu Fini, and that's going to set up the Misty Terrain. If both Pokemon are led at the beginning of the match, the faster Pokemon will put up its terrain first, and then the slower Pokemon will put up its terrain, which will override the terrain of the faster Pokemon. All of that is true for the weather as well. I didn't talk about that before with weather, but the same thing is true here. So only one weather can be in effect. So if Torkoal and Politoed are both led, Politoed is faster, so the rain would go up first, and then Torkoal would set up the sun, so the sun would be in effect, not the rain. So next I'm just going to talk about some common support Pokemon and common support moves. So the most common support Pokemon that you're going to see is Incineroar. It's the most common Pokemon that you're going to see because it's just so good at support. It's a Pokemon that is very naturally bulky. You can see it's got high hit points, high special defense, high defense. So people train their Incineroar similar to how I trained the Porygon 2 before. They're going to max out the hit points and then boost its defense and special defense just like we did with the Porygon before. What makes Incineroar so good is it gets the ability Intimidate. What Intimidate does is it lowers your opponent's attack when Incineroar enters the battle. We talked about the stat changes before, so just a quick reminder. When a Pokemon is at a -1 stat stage, that means that stat is cut by 2/3 of its original power. So if you're facing one of those strong physical attackers that we talked about earlier, like a Glastrier, when I send an Incineroar, he's going to lower Glastrier's attack, which is going to make his moves a lot weaker. So Intimidate, this is one of the best abilities on the game. Incineroar is the best Intimidate Pokemon. The other great thing about Incineroar is he gets Fake Out. So you lead Incineroar, he's going to lower your opponent's attack when he enters the battle. He also can Fake Out, so he can make one of your opponent's Pokemon flinch on the first turn, and then you're able to hit that Pokemon with a ton of damage. Another great move that Incineroar gets is Parting Shot. So Parting Shot lowers attack and special attack by 1, and then Incineroar switches out. So what's great about that is, again, let's go back to the Glastrier example. So I bring Incineroar in that lowers Glastrier's attack. Then I use Parting Shot that lowers his attack again, and Incineroar comes out. Now my next turn I can bring him back in and intimidate the Glastrier a second time, but now his stat stage is at -3, and that means he's doing 0.4 of what he should be doing. So his attacks are doing way less than what they're supposed to be doing. So that's a way that you can really shut down physical attackers. He also gets access to Will-O-Wisp. So Will-O-Wisp burns your opponent. If a Pokemon is burned, their physical attack is cut in half. It also takes, I believe, 1/16 of their hit points at the end of each turn. So it's going to do damage to them at the end of each turn, and even more importantly, it's going to cut their physical attack in half. So Incineroar is just great against physically attacking Pokemon. Okay, we talked about Regieleki before, how Regieleki can be used for speed control. It can use Electro Web to slow the opponent down. It also gets access to the moves Light Screen and Reflect. Again, we talked about how fast Regieleki is. It's the fastest Pokemon in the game. It's always going to go first, other than priority moves, obviously. But since Regieleki is so fast, it's going to be able to get up screens for you. So what the screens do, Reflect cuts the damage of physical moves in half. Light Screen cuts the damage of special attacks in half. So Regieleki can be used to set up Light Screen and Reflect. Another thing you can do is Eerie Impulse. Eerie Impulse lowers your target's special attack by 2 stages. So we talked about how Intimidate lowers physical attack by 1 stage. Eerie Impulse lowers their special attack by 2 stages. So if you're playing against a special attacking Pokemon like a Spectrier, you could use Eerie Impulse to lower its stat stage by 2, which cuts its special attack in half. So now it's going to be doing half as much damage. Grimmsnarl is the most common screen setter in the game because it's a prankster Pokemon. So again, we've talked about prankster a lot. Prankster lets status moves go first. So Grimmsnarl is used to come in and set up Light Screen and Reflect before your opponent can attack. So prankster allows those moves to go first. So now if I'm playing again against, say, a Glastrier, I can put up a Reflect before a Glastrier is able to attack. That's going to cut his attack in half. Another common move for Grimmsnarl is Taunt. We talked about Taunt before. That stops your opponent from using status moves for 3 turns. Another great move that Grimmsnarl gets is Fake Tears. Fake Tears lowers your target's special defense by 2 stages. So if you have a special attacking Pokemon like a Spectrier, if I use Fake Tears on a Pokemon and then hit it with a move from Spectrier, now Spectrier's attack is going to do twice as much damage because Fake Tears cut their special defense in half. So it's basically the same as powering up my Pokemon. I'm making their defense weaker, so now my attack is going to hit twice as hard. But again, it's lowering special defense, so that's going to make your special attack better. So obviously you're not going to want to use that with a physical Pokemon, again like a Glastrier, because Glastrier is a physical attacker. You're going to want to use this with a special attacking Pokemon. Also, while I'm talking about Grimmsnarl and Prankster, the one thing I didn't mention so far is Prankster doesn't work against dark Pokemon. So I can't taunt a dark Pokemon with Grimmsnarl because Prankster doesn't let me use taunt against that dark Pokemon. That doesn't mean a dark Pokemon can't be taunted. It just means you can't use taunt with the Prankster ability. If I use taunt with my Incineroar who doesn't have Prankster, then I can still taunt a dark Pokemon. Registeel is another Pokemon that has been pretty popular. I don't know if it's really considered a support Pokemon, but it uses status moves to make itself really good. So this is another Pokemon that is very naturally bulky. You can see its defense and special defense are both 150. So this is another one where I would go full hit points and, boost its special defense and defense like we've talked about with other Pokemon like Incineroar and Porygon. But then what Registeel is able to do is it gets Iron Defense, which raises its defense by 2 stages, which means now its defense is double. It also gets Amnesia, which does the same thing for special defense. So I can boost my special defense by 2, which doubles my special defense. And again, you can keep using these moves until you're up to +6. And once you're at +6, if I go back to my stat stages here, now it's 4 times what it originally was. So if my defense was originally, let's just make this easier and say my special defense was originally 200. If I'm able to boost my special defense to +6, now his defense is times, or his special defense is times 4, so it's going to be 800 instead of 200. So it makes it basically unkillable, and then people will use leftovers with it so that it restores 1/16 of its hit points, so you basically can't kill it. And then they use a move like Body Press, which uses his defense stat instead of his attack stat. So once its defense is boosted by times 4, even when it's times 2, Body Press is going to be doing a ton of damage. So it's basically unkillable, and then it does super powerful attacks with Body Press. So Body Press is a really good move for physically bulky Pokemon because it's going to use their defense stat instead of their attack stat. So it's a great move for a Pokemon like Registeel to deal out a ton of damage while also being super bulky. So Registeel is a Pokemon that you cannot let get set up because once it's set up with a couple Iron Defenses and Amnesias, now you basically can't kill it and you just lose. Last thing, since we're on Series 10 right now, we should talk about Wide Guard. Wide Guard is a really common move right now. It protects your allies from multi-target attacks. So Wide Guard is like Protect, but for both of you, and it's against spread moves. So I talked about common spread moves in my other video, but just as a reminder here, you can type in spread moves Pokemon and go on Pokemon database, and this is going to show you all the different spread moves. So spread moves are moves that hit both of the opponents. Something like Heat Wave. So, like I said, Wide Guard is going to block those spread moves. And that's very common right now in Series 10 because Series 10 features a lot of spread moves. The next type of support Pokemon that I want to talk about are Pokemon that give you redirection. So, Clefairy is a super common Pokemon because it gets the move Follow Me. Follow Me makes the opponent Pokemon hit Clefairy instead of your other Pokemon. So say I have one of those super powerful Pokemon like Spectre. Spectre is really powerful, but it's really easy to knock out. So people will use Clefairy next to Spectre so that Clefairy can use Follow Me. So now the opponent is attacking the Clefairy instead of the Spectre. So now the Spectre isn't taking any damage and it's able to deal out its damage and knock out the opposing Pokemon. Why do people use Clefairy instead of Clefable? Clefairy has an amazing ability. It's Friend Guard. So Friend Guard allows this Pokemon's allies to receive 3/4 of the damage from your opponent's Pokemon's attacks. So it's going to reduce the damage that your partner Pokemon is taking. So it's a great ability. It's also another Pokemon that gets Eviolite since it can evolve. So you can make it very bulky and redirect attacks away from your strong Pokemon. Indeedee is another common Pokemon that gets Follow Me. So we talked about how Indeedee gets Psychic Surge, so Indeedee can stop opponents from using priority moves with its Psychic Surge, and it can also use Follow Me to redirect any attacks to Indeedee instead of hitting your better Pokemon, your attacking Pokemon. Now those spread moves that we were just talking about ignore Follow Me because Follow Me redirects a single target attack into this Pokemon. A spread move is still going to hit both of them, so it's not going to stop a spread move from happening, but you'll be able to redirect any single target attack using Follow Me. Raichu and Gastrodon have abilities that are similar to Follow Me. They're going to redirect attacks, but only specific attacks. So Raichu has the ability Lightning Rod. Lightning Rod redirects any electric move, and same thing is true. It only redirects single target moves. So any single target electric move, Raichu will just absorb, and then it also boosts Raichu's special attack by 1 stage. Gastrodon has the same thing except for water moves. So that ability is called Storm Drain. It's going to attract a single target water move and boost Gastrodon's special attack. So Raichu is used a lot of times with a Pokemon like Moltres. Moltres is a strong, well, I should say Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres is a strong special attacker, but it's weak to electric moves because it's flying, so people will put a Raichu next to it so that it can't be hit by a strong electric move. Gastrodon is used next to, good Pokemon that are weak to water to absorb water moves that your Pokemon might get hit by. So these are all Pokemon that can be used to redirect attacks away from your powerful attacking Pokemon. So another move that I have here on Clefairy that can help prevent your strong attacking Pokemon from getting hit by a super effective attack is Ally Switch. Ally Switch switches the position of the Clefairy and its partner. So the move that was supposed to hit your partner is now going to hit the Clefairy, and if they targeted the Clefairy, that move is now going to hit its partner Pokemon. So they switch places, and then the moves hit the opposite Pokemon. So last thing I want to talk about here is weakness policy. Weakness policy is one of the best items that you can give a Pokemon, because what weakness policy does is when a Pokemon gets hit by a super effective attack, it boosts your attack and special attack by 2 stages. So it's great because it can be used by any Pokemon because it boosts both the attack and special attack. So it doesn't matter if you're a physical or special attacker, you can use this item. So what people do is they'll put weakness policy on their strong attacking Pokemon, they'll Dynamax that Pokemon, and then they will intentionally hit their own Pokemon with a super effective attack to activate this weakness policy, and that's going to boost its attack or special attack 2 stages, which means all of its moves are doubled in power now. So a common strategy was something like Raikou and Metagross. Raikou gets the ability Inner Focus, so it can't be flinched, so you can't use Fake Out and make Raikou flinch. And then it would use Bulldoze, which would lower the speed of all the opponent's Pokemon. Metagross would ignore the speed drop because it has Clear Body, which ignores stat drops. And then Bulldoze would activate its weakness policy because Metagross is weak to ground moves. Since Raikou is not a very good physical attacker, and since Metagross is Dynamaxed, Bulldoze is not going to do very much damage. It's going to activate that weakness policy, and now Metagross's moves are hitting twice as hard as they normally would hit. Another common one was Comfey and Moltres. So Comfey has this ability here, I don't know how to say this, but this ability boosts the priority of healing moves by 3. So Draining Kiss does damage to the opposing Pokemon, and then Comfey recovers 75% of the damage that it dealt. So it's going to get some hit points back. So since that is a move that gets hit points back for Comfey, it's a healing move. So I can use Draining Kiss, which is going to have a +3 priority, so it's going to go first. That's going to hit Moltres to activate its weakness policy, and now Moltres is hitting its moves twice as hard, just like with the Metagross. Another one that I wanted to mention, this one wasn't very common, but I just wanted to talk about this because it's a very unique ability. There's this ability called Unburden, which doubles the speed of the Pokemon when it loses its held item. So Sceptile is a Pokemon that gets Unburdened. So I can give Sceptile weakness policy, and then I can use a Pokemon like Sneasel to use Ice Shard to hit the Sceptile for a super effective attack. Ice Shard is a priority move, so it's going to go first. It's going to hit Sceptile, which is going to boost its attack and special attack by 2. Since he's using the weakness policy, now Unburden is going to activate and his speed is going to be doubled. So now his speed is doubled, his attack and special attack are doubled. So he's going to be the fastest Pokemon and he's going to be doing a ton of damage. Why I would use Sneasel in this case is because Sneasel gets Inner Focus, which again means they can't be flinched, so you can't fake them out and make them flinch. And Ice Shard is priority, so Ice Shard is going to go first. Like I said, hit Sceptile, activate the weakness policy, and the Unburdened ability is going to go off. So Unburdened is a very unique ability. You might want to check out the Pokemon that get Unburdened because it can be really good. The reason you don't see Unburdened more is because the Pokemon that get it aren't the greatest Pokemon. But if you can find a way to make these Pokemon work, it can be really strong. Okay, so that's pretty much everything that I wanted to hit on here. I've talked about speed control, weather, terrain, priority moves, good support Pokemon, redirection, weakness policy. These are all things that you want to think about when you're building a team. So how can I give myself a speed advantage? Um, what support Pokemon can I use to either boost my attacks or to lower my opponent's stats? What redirection do I want to use to help protect my strong Pokemon? Right? You can't just make a team with all attackers. You can't just make all physical attackers, all special attackers, and win games. You have to have these support Pokemon to help them out to make these Pokemon better.